All right, welcome back to the channel. So, listening to Fast Eddie Hearn seems as if it is backfiring something severe on Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Let's talk about it in this video. All right, welcome back. Man, Eddie Hearn's out there messing up people's career with terrible advice. So, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is now going to be sanctioned, most likely, and sanctioned severely, most likely, by the Nevada State Athletic Commission for fighting for what he did before the Daniel Jacobs fight. And I hope they throw the entire book at him, as heavy a penalty as they can muster. And if they could attach it to Eddie Hearn for what Eddie Hearn did, I would support that as well. Nevada State Athletic Commission, please do what the WBC, I don't even know who they fought on it, but people like the WBC, the WBA, the WBO, and these guys will not do. IBF is being for real about it. And that is try to get performance enhancing drugs out of the sport of boxing, and people that do things that prevent you from accomplishing that, punish them severely. So what is this? What happened? Julio Cesar Chavez, the son of the great Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., Mexican world champion, one of the greatest Mexican fighters in boxing history, one of the best fighters, all-time great fighter. His son, not so much. Lost to Canelo Alvarez, I do believe. But he, put in a good performance for a couple seconds towards the end of the fight with Sergio Garcia. I think that might have been, Sergio Martinez. I think that might have been Sergio Martinez's last fight. But that's who Julio Cesar Chavez is. Got his behind whooped by Canelo Alvarez. That Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He was supposed to fight Daniel Jacobs, and then in the prelim, before the fight after the fight was announced between Daniel Jacobs and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., VADA, I do believe, tried to test, or the Nevada State Athletic Commission tried to get a performance-enhancing drug test out of Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. refused to be tested. And once he refused to be tested, Nevada State Athletic Commission suspended him. And they suspended him because he refused to take the test. Similar to if you get pulled over by a police officer and they suspect you of driving under the influence of alcohol, and they say, will you please take this, blowing this thing for this breathalyzer so we can see if you are under the influence of if you're under the influence or not, and you tell them no. When you tell them no, they're going to treat you as if that's an admission of guilt. And they're just going to assume that you're in violation and suspend your license, do whatever they have to do because you refused to blow in that breathalyzer. Same thing with what happened with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He didn't test positive because he refused to test. Same thing that happened with Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury did the same thing with UCAD. UCAD tried to come test him. He refused to let the testers in and claimed that he had to go to a mental institution, and that's why he wouldn't open the door to allow them to test him. And when you do that, that's a violation of performance enhancing drugs. That's how it should be considered. And that's what happened. But Eddie Hearn decides that no, let's try to use a loophole here. Well, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. did not apply for his Nevada athletic license. He didn't apply for his license yet. So, and I do believe that was a situation that he had not signed for the fight. Yeah. Oh, that might have been what it is. The argument was either that he had not applied for the license yet, or that the fight was not official yet. And they had not made, the fight was still preliminary. And since the fight was still preliminary, that they the Nevada State Athletic Commission did not have the right to test him. That he either needed to have the site, I can't remember which one it was. He either needed to have had the fight signed for, so there was an actual fight that was scheduled for Nevada that would allow them to test him, or that he had to have a Nevada State athletic license issued to him, and consequently then therefore they were under their jurisdiction. Whatever the case was for the argument, that's what they pushed that, and they moved the fight to Arizona, right? And to prevent him from getting, because if Nevada State Athletic Commission had suspended him, then Arizona wouldn't have taken the fight, because that would have been forum hopping, right? And they're not going to say, well, you can come over to us and fight if, you know, and refuse to honor, you know, the sanctions of Nevada. Because if it was the other way around and there was somebody that Arizona suspended, Arizona wouldn't want them to go to Nevada and fight in Nevada. So what happens? Okay, let me make sure I get this right, because I don't want to say this wrong. This is what happened. On October 30th, the Nevada State Athletic Commission placed Chavez on temporary suspension pending the result of a November commission meeting. Then the vote of the commission, the temporary suspension was extended until the resolution of the blah, 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 blah. Eddie Hearn moved the fight from Las Vegas to Phoenix. Then the Nevada State Athletic Commission, Chavez filed a civil action in Nevada to stop the Nevada State Athletic Commission from proceeding from any disciplinary action against him. The court granted Chavez's request for a temporary restraining order, or a TRO, that prevented the Nevada State Athletic Commission from proceeding on such action. And so, but what happened then after that? So Chavez then fought and went on ahead in Arizona. But now, after the fight is over, on appeal, the court ruled the Nevada State Athletic Commission did have jurisdiction over Chavez to request the drug test and to proceed with disciplinary action against him after his refusal to submit to the test. The court order is expected, a court written order is expected within 2 weeks. So now that he went to, what was the court? Can't remember which court was this in. The 8th Judicial District Court of Nevada. Yeah, I think that's where it is. But regardless, what happens on appeal, when they appealed it, the Nevada State Athletic Commission appealed it, then that appeal, they were successful in their appeal, and now they have the ability, and they also asked to dismiss a countersuit by Chavez. So all of that legal wrangling goes on. At the end of it, Nevada State Athletic Commission wins. Now they can proceed with some sort of punishment for or sanction for Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And what I hope is that they throw the entire book at his ass and suspend him for 5 years. If they suspend him for 5 years, then his career is completely over. And it would have been over because he listened to Eddie Hearn and tried to get slick and screw over and avoid performance-enhancing drug tests. Listening to it, because if you look at what Eddie Hearn has done, what the WBC has done, what British Boxing Board of Control has done over the last couple years, and has been very, very visible in Canelo Alvarez's performance-enhancing drug test, the handling of Tyson Fury and his drug test, the fact that right now, after testing positive for everything under the sun, you have a guy like Big Baby Miller, who's going to be signed by Top Rank and backfighting. These guys aren't serious about squashing this problem whatsoever. Either they don't have the money, they don't have the interest, or they don't have the money and they don't have the interest. Whatever the case is, this is a perfect example of what the mentality is of these promoters and these fighters relative to performance enhancing drugs. And it is that they don't care about it and they will do whatever they need to do in court, and including violating the Ali Act to the detriment of fighters so that they can get their money for a particular fight. And I certainly hope that Eddie Hearn, if he doesn't get suspended, he should be blacklisted. Because he's the guy that pushed for Canelo and arranged the forum hopping that Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. participated in when he took that fight from Las Vegas to over to Arizona. And the funniest thing about that whole situation is that fight in Arizona was an embarrassment. Just the way that Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. performed, the way that the crowd threw bottles and all kind of other stuff for the fight, it was a complete travesty. And this caps the whole thing off. But anyway, you let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.